Indiana Jones. It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we follow the proverbial gunpowder 1 minute at a time. Where will it lead? We don't know. I'm the Admiral, Pete Mummert.
I'm just the guy, Tom Taylor.
I'm Gerald Christopher Marcus Porter.
And I'm very excited today. We're welcoming back one of our favorite guests from last season. And this time I promise that we'll have 100% fewer questions about plenary indulgences. And we also made sure that Jerry combed his hair and put on a nice shirt. Father David Mowry, welcome back to the show.
Boys, it's good to be back. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
How did that last crusade wind up?
You tell us. Yeah. How does the end of it all work?
Well, we've all obviously still got some life in us, so maybe worked out a little bit.
And some breath.
Yep.
As long as the breath of God didn't knock it out of you.
Yeah, Father David, I'm looking at my notes here for today, and I have 862 questions for you. I'm gonna go with number 617, and I'm serious. This is a real question here. I've thought about this. So, for the last 2,000 years or so, hymns and singing praise has been an important part of the Catholic Mass. And as the main celebrant, you're frequently the one kicking off the tune, and sometimes you're even up there singing a cappella certain parts of the Mass and that sort of thing. So I've thought about this, how do you tackle that if you have an unmelodious voice? I'm not saying you do, but I do.
That's kind of a loaded question, Jerry.
Like if I would, yes, I'm not a very good singer.
Yeah,
and
the bishop wouldn't appreciate me dragging a drum set up to the altar to cover my lack of singing voice. Well, in seminary formation, it's made very clear that the role of the presider is to lead the prayer, and prayer at Mass, as you mentioned, Jerry, is often chanted. Chant and music have a very special place in Catholic worship. Music has been understood to be something that elevates our speech. St. Augustine said that he who sings prays twice, because it adds an extra level of intentionality to what you do with your voice. Because we can babble on and speak at great length about a variety of topics. Movies, for instance, is just one example that comes randomly to mind.
I don't get it.
But to sing, that requires you to engage with the whole of your body, your breath support, your vocal cords, your mind, and integrate everything into one action. And therefore, that song that gets lifted up is something that grabs the whole person. And the church has always seen music as something that is a way of offering worthy praise and worship to God. So in seminary formation, song and musical training is something that is stressed. At the beginning of each academic year at the seminary, the choir director would come to all the new students, all the new seminarians who are coming to Mundelein for the first time, Mundelein Seminary, that is, and say to all the seminary students, you need to check in with me in order to have a vocal checkup, because I want to see how your voice is. Now, no one really tells the seminarians this, so keep this quiet, but the vocal checkup is not required. But the choir director acts like it is, because the vocal training is so important. So even if a man isn't going to be in the chant schola, say, for instance, we have a number of men who are part of other choirs that don't sing as frequently, but still allow him a chance to practice singing and to practice music. Now, time was when I went through seminary, I had to pass what was called a chant exam, where you had to demonstrate at least competency in chanting the various prayers and parts of the Mass. In the seminary program now, as far as I understand, that's not required, but that idea of the presider being able to chant at Mass is still something that is important for those who are preparing to be priests.
I feel nowadays they just auto-tune it. They just
we haven't quite gotten there yet, thankfully. There's still some dignity left.
I keep throwing these knuckleballs at our resident priest here, and you just give the best answers. Just like a grand slam, like not out of the stuff. Not over the fence, but like out of the park and landing in the river on the other side of the stadium.
It's like when people at Star Wars Celebration would stop you and, hey, are you a real priest? And you go, yeah, I'm a real priest. He knows this stuff, Jerry. He's a priest.
I did. Well, not everyone is anointed with dulcet tones, from the beginning, yeah. So I figured, but yet you have to carry a tune in front of hundreds and even maybe thousands.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of not blessed with dulcet tones at all, I should introduce the minute here. Today we're talking about minute 10 of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Minute 10 begins with Indy saying, "or not," and Dovchenko pouring gunpowder from a hand grenade into his hand, and it ends 60 seconds later with Indy asking for a set of pliers for his new shotgun shells.
Don't you think that "or not" was maybe our slogan for whether or not we were going to do this season?
It might still be.
We'll see. Is this on?
I like, though, that Spalko gives Indy kind of a wry little smile here when he says "or not." And I'm wondering if she appreciates that he's kind of gotten one over on her soldiers.
She likes that American spunk.
What soldier comes without a compass? Isn't that standard military issue?
Yeah, that's standard Boy Scout issue. That you think by now, they would all be pretty well
by that regard, then Indy should have one. We know he's a scout.
That's true.
Wow, that's true. I wonder.
Maybe they frisked him when they tossed him in the trunk, and they took his compass and his pencil case and his protractor.
How need this capitalist compass? Puh.
How do we know he didn't get kicked out of the Boy Scouts? After that whole,
Herman might have filed a complaint.
Totally. Cross the Coronado, nonsense.
Yeah.
Totally.
I'll never carry a compass again.
Hands pouring grains and granules for 400, Alex. No, is a big thing in these Indiana Jones movies. The sort of grains being poured out and granules being poured out. And at second floor, we get this, big bad Russian theatrically pouring gunpowder into Indy's palm. And I'm asking you guys, does this remind you of Raiders when Indy pours some sand out of that, the bogus idol sandbag? Or even at like the end of Raiders when Belloc scoops up emulsified angel bits from the Ark of the Covenant. There's a lot of these visual, this to me was like a callback to Raiders, those scenes. Did you guys feel that way?
The Ark was a weapon. This is a weapon. See?
Yes, there you go. Even
especially the way he kind of like flicks his hand after he gets the gunpowder in it.
Exactly.
That feels about
even,
right. That's the right
like
amount to say.
when Indy's tied up at the end of Raiders, like he's tied to the post with the rope, and then the rope is kind of it kind of gets whisked away by Yahweh, and it's in tatters, and they show his hands. There's a close up of his hands with like these these tatters sort of floating off.
It's one of several things in this movie that evokes the previous films, and it's I did think about that the third or fourth time I was watching this clip, reminding me of that scene with the idol, and it adds to the overall, I don't know, Force Awakens like quality of this movie, where you are hearkening back to these familiar tropes and familiar images to reassure the audience, yes, you are in fact watching an Indiana Jones movie. Except no substitutes.
That seems like a really double-edged sword kind of thing to do in anything. Like, yes, you want to harken back to, I mean, there's obvious, you got Indiana Jones standing there. You're sort of grounded in Indiana Jones because he's right there. But do you, it's like seeing the Ark on the wall in the catacombs in Last Crusade. It's like, okay, oh, that's cool. Hey, I remember this is all the same guy. He's on a different adventure. I remember Raiders. That was awesome. But then you're also kind of like, oh, that'd be awesome if I was watching Raiders right now. Like, why don't remind people of the much cooler thing that they could be watching right now.
Tom and I also already had a big fight about this last week over
That's true.
Whether it was cool or not that they were filming here in the crate warehouse.
I don't remember that conversation.
Well, let's. well, what do you think about that? What do you think about it? First of all, Father David, is this where the Ark went after Raiders? That was one of our questions. Is this the place the Ark was delivered at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, final shot? And if it is that cool or not?
Well, on the one hand, it seems like it would not be, because we're clearly set up for this to be Area 51, given the huge 5-1 on the doors as they come into the warehouse. That's a pretty big giveaway. Yeah. Unless it's Area 15, in which case the Russians are going to feel very silly. Or 1S or something. So it would seem unusual to ship the Ark all the way across the country to nowhere, Nevada, when I don't even know if Area 51 was really up and running in 1936. So the location of where the Ark is put, I never thought about where that actually was. It was just a big mysterious warehouse where, oh my gosh, look at all these things that the government has found and is hiding away because they just don't understand it. It was that last shot was more about the mystery and the wonder of the world, how we had been on this wild adventure with the Ark of the Covenant, but there was so much more that we don't understand in the world that the powers that be are just keeping under wraps because they don't understand it any better than we do, but it's better just to keep it very quietly locked away. If this was where the Ark ended up, that would take away some of that mystery. It would take away some of that wonder. It would undercut the ending of that movie, because Raiders is a movie about forces beyond our ken, about not meddling with things that we don't understand and the consequences thereof. It comes up several times. Like Sala says, if the Ark is in Tanis, it was not meant to be found. We talk about the wrath of God wiping the city clean, and then what happens to Belloc and Tote and all of our other friends. To actually find the place where these mysteries are located is, like opening up one of those storage units on Storage Wars and find, oh, look, it's the Grail. Oh, how about that?
And scene.
But see, I actually kind of like that, because like Groom Lake, where Area 51 is located, I think they started in the mid 50s, like not too long before this movie takes place, to test spy planes. And I kind of like the idea that, I mean, this obviously isn't where it came right at the end of Raiders, but kind of like, in life, it seems like often you have these epiphanies or these moments where you really experience something special. But within a few years, I mean, it kind of dulls. And after a while, you just kind of forget all about it and you're back to living kind of your mundane existence. And it's been, 20 something years since Raiders, and the government's completely forgotten, all this stuff. Like they've got this magical, powerful thing, and it's just relegated to a warehouse out in Nevada now.
I've removed myself from this conversation, but Father David made a really good point. I just want to say that from the I want to say he's a smart guy.
Pete, I go to the movies to escape real life. I'm not trying to find that I understand that it a couple years goes by and that epiphany just gets dulled and loses its luster in its regular life, and you're like, I guess I'm gonna die someday. That's why I went to the movies in the first place, to avoid that thinking.
I will say, this movie's set in 1957, so Indy would be about, I think, 58 years old, and Harrison Ford was 65 when they filmed this. And I am like, the way he very nimbly climbs up these crates here.
Yeah,
like I'm in my mid 40s. I'm gonna have trouble doing that. Like,
and he
it's pretty
seems
amazing
so
how
much
easily
older 7 years later in The Force Awakens.
Yeah,
I don't know what
Wow.
happened. He seems like a very spry 65, but he's an old 72.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Then Indy says here, if it's still magnet, if it's still magnetized, I guess, metal in this gunpowder should point the way. So are you guys thinking here that the Ark of the Covenant is magnetic?
Or whatever it is they're looking for?
Well, I don't know. See, that's what I'm thinking it is.
I think when I first saw it, I still thought it was the Ark.
You
at this
still
point,
think
too.
you're like, oh, so the Ark of the Covenant's
Yeah.
magnetic. That's what's going on here. Which, of course, would I don't know. I guess it wouldn't make sense. Like, then after Raiders and it was opened, it became magnetic. I guess I'm just dumb. I guess we don't have to answer that.
I do think, and Tom's gonna absolutely hate this.
I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, when he tosses the gunpowder into the air, I think that the effect here, the effect and the little kind of mysterious music cue we get is fantastic, and I think it's kind of a little bit of that old fashioned Spielberg wonder.
Yeah,
I don't mind
that
the effect.
everybody's
I
kinda
like the
looking on
effect.
and-
I think the effect looks
Okay.
good. And I like the way the little bits kind of flare when they get to the lamps and stuff.
Yeah,
I
that's
like
very
that.
cool.
yeah.
But yeah, I think John Williams is starting to have not met a trilly sort of harpy thing that he never met, that he never liked.
Well, so how did Indy know that to cast the gunpowder up? Like, I was wondering, has he seen that done before?
That's a great question because as far as I know, there's no metal in gunpowder.
At this point, there's not. I think there was
it's mostly
earlier, but I think
even
at this point,
like
they
black
use-
powder, like old black
Uh-huh.
powder, like old time black powder is mostly sulfur, saltpeter, and what's the third thing? I can't remember. Like charcoal, I think. There's no magnetized metal in gunpowder unless Soviets have different gunpowder that's full of uranium or something. I don't know.
They do everything different. They're not like
Well,
us.
what's interesting, like, did they lose the Ark or whatever this is before? Whatever they're saying, did they? And they're like, God, where did we put that crate? You know what I mean? As like, is this a technique that's known among Area 51dians?
Yeah,
Well,
why
if
didn't
Indy
they
is-
kill all the guys who actually work there? They killed and beat up all the guys who actually work there, who might have
all
like a
5 of
ledger
them.
or something, or a list
Yeah,
of like
all
where
5
things
of them
are.
at the high security.
A
place.
little key.
Even by force, they could say like, "Hey, you know this place. You know where stuff is. You've got like logs and things." Where's
Well, they
box
had
number
Indiana
2283?
Jones in their trunk. They didn't need anybody else.
I guess he's gonna throw gunpowder. He'll figure it out.
Or is that just how, like, no one pays attention to the key or the map of, the layout? There's like a floor plan, with like a grid A1. That's where we store, Aaron's staff from the Old Testament.
Yeah,
Well,
G11 is Aaron's staff. G5 is bed springs and armoires and
Like the original bed knobs and broomsticks.
Everyone has that drawer they just throw things into because they just don't want to think about it anymore. And finally comes the day when you have to face the music, you have to organize that drawer, and it's an absolute mess. That's what this warehouse is. It's the government's junk drawer. They just throw things in here because they just don't want to bother with it anymore. No one's organized this. No one has cataloged any of this. I'm surprised the lights are even on and all the light bulbs aren't burnt out.
Do you think, like, say you want to find Aaron's staff, would you throw up like a banana because potassium is what would find it?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, is that how?
If you're looking for something magnetic, how do they know that that's the only magnetic thing in that entire warehouse?
See, that's what drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Well, Indy has apparently seen this before.
Oh, really?
I think.
Well,
we
he
get
must
that
have.
later.
It's not like he has to stop
Yeah.
and think about, like, oh, what can we have? What can we do? It's okay.
Right,
No
right.
compass. Give me the bullets.
Well, she said in
Right,
the
and
last
we-
minute or so previous to this, she said, that he was, that he knew where
Yeah,
it
he was
that
a part of a
involved.
team that he had worked on it, so he knows how to find it. But I still can't get over, like, the fact that they're storing, like, we'll see a couple weeks from now, that they're storing this in a location that just seems bananas that they would store it next to where they're just about to detonate
Right.
an atomic bomb.
Totally.
But I also, it is interesting because, you also have those things in your life that are so powerful that you either save because it's so powerful you don't want to use it now, or else it's so powerful it scares you and you don't know how to use it, and so you just kind of forget about it. Like you just kind of push it out of your mind. It's like the government's done this with all this stuff.
The video game power up you never use because it's too good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're saving it. You're like, I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this, and then you die, and it's like, oh.
I just wonder if the way they find stuff is by throwing various materials up in the air.
Yeah.
Like that's essentially the key.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, actually, by the way, do you guys know what the most magnetic material is?
The most magnetic material.
Yes, the most magnetic material. It used to be iron cobalt. This concoction, but now I believe it's this iron nitrogen compound.
It's like an iron gas.
I don't know.
Weird.
Well, they should have just brought big spray cans of that with them.
Yeah.
And just spray some iron into the air. That would have done it.
I thought you were going a different direction with this, Jerry. I thought you were hoping we were all going to be, you are, Jerry.
You're the most magnetic one in the whole world.
My belt buckle. No.
Your mom said so.
And even just the use of the gunpowder itself just strikes me as so ridiculous. Like using a compass, that makes sense. That's sensitive enough to pick up on the Earth's magnetic field. Okay, that would make sense. Big magnetic field generating thing in the warehouse. Compass can go crazy finding it fine. But for something to be so magnetic to pull metal gunpowder, and I'm using a heavy air quotes here, metal gunpowder through the air like that, that would have a humongous effect on all the metal these soldiers and Indy are already wearing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't the fillings be flying out of their teeth when they even enter the place and stuff?
Yeah, we find out this magnetism is a little weird.
It is a little weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we get in the script, we get a little extra here that I don't like. In the script, it says Indy gets an idea and grabs Dovchenko's hat from his head.
Mm.
And that reminds me of Skipper pulling Gilligan's hat off and hitting him. And B, it just seems a little over the top. Like, you're not going to be here surrounded by guys and just grab the main guy's hat off of his head.
When's someone going to shoot this guy?
And then when she says, like, Spalko says, like, don't toy with me, Dr. Jones. I
Dr.
wonder.
Jones.
So, is he going to
Jones, yeah.
is he going to toy with her? Is that like every time you run into this guy, that's has he already toyed with them? And maybe that's how he wound up in the trunk. Or B, is he just known as worldwide as a toyer?
I think right now in this moment, he's got a fistful of gunpowder and he's climbing up some boxes.
I mean, but how's he going to toy? What's he going to like throw it at him? I mean,
Indiana Jones is a scamp. He's a mischief maker.
Yeah.
He is a smart and sneaky guy. So you always got to be keeping an eye on your pocket when Indiana Jones is around. Never know what he's going to pull.
I don't know a lot about gunpowder, but if you have your hat filled with gunpowder and then you like dump some of it out, but then you put your hat back on. And this is the 1950s, so then like you go and smoke a cigarette. Is your head going to blow up?
Yeah, probably.
Yes.
This seems dangerous.
But it's going to cure your smoking habit real quick, because that's what it's going to do.
Yes. I like we get like at this point we start everyone's kind of marching along following the gunpowder, and the music here reminds me a lot of the music from The Phantom Menace. Kind of some of the marches, which is by far my favorite part of that movie. And I think that's a nice part here.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of moments like that listening to the music in this movie because it reminded me, one of the last major projects John Williams worked on were the prequels. And I'm hearing a lot of Star Wars prequel-esque notes and motifs in this.
This is the stuff he crumpled up on the floor when he was doing Phantom Menace. He's like, I'll save it for later. Almost there, but not quite. Not many people know this, but this warehouse was filmed at the IKEA in Schaumburg, Illinois.
Are you serious?
No, I made that. It's obviously a joke.
It was not obviously a joke.
I know.
Apparently.
If you look really closely, you can see the Swedish meatballs that they had to tuck behind one of the crates.
You can almost
just
taste
to hide them.
I like the grenades gunpowder. Like we started with the shells, I guess, right? And then we turned to grenades. I don't know. It signifies something explosive is around the corner.
They sure are using a lot of them.
Yeah, but then it's weird. Then he goes back to shells.
Oh, I just thought of how this scene would be so much better. Couldn't he spend like 20 minutes saying like, nope, that's not enough gunpowder. Give me more gunpowder. And then pretty soon they're just completely disarmed and he beats them all up.
If this was Bugs Bunny and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull,
This movie could use some Bugs Bunny.
Well, to see that, but Spalkov was ready for that. That's what she was worried about him toying with them over.
Right.
Yes. More gunpowder. Not quite enough. A little bit more.
Don't paint a highway onto that wall and then run down it, Dr. Jones.
Speaking of shotgun shells,
I love when they do that. Paint highway, and it's like a big 4-inch brush, and they dip it in black and they paint a tunnel.
And a train comes
and then a train comes out of the tunnel. It's like if you build it, they'll come.
He's like Harold in his purple crayon.
Yeah.
Speaking of if you build it, they'll come. This just in.
Oh, wait.
Well, we can.
I have one more thing here.
Go ahead. Sure. That was a false. This just in. I just built it real quick
weird.
with a little 4-inch brush.
No, this isn't big. I just want to say I love how this guy cocks the shotgun shells out of his gun.
That is pretty cool.
Like, it's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
A very satisfying Foley work. Yeah.
Yeah, very nonchalant too. But it kind of reminds me at the end of in LA Confidential where the guy cocks the shotgun one-handed.
Oh yeah.
It's just kind of like if I ever held a shotgun, that's what I would do. I would cock it one-handed and then I would flip the shells out like that.
And throw your shoulder out.
Yeah. Throw my shoulder. But I'd also probably wash my hands very carefully after.
Yeah.
Like I would like. To me, that makes me super anxious.
Having gunpowder on your hands, having a highly explosive powder on your hands, why would that make you anxious?
Relax.
Like I'd stop and wash my hands and then very delicately like take a rag and try to take a shell, very gently out of the shotgun to make sure it doesn't blow up.
Little baby wipes for Peter.
Yeah. But secretly, I've always wanted to be that kind of nonchalant shotgun ejector guy.
We all have. That's what dreams are for.
Speaking of dreams are for, anything coming in?
Why? Yes, this time it's real. Hey, this just in from Professor Christy Porter, coming hot of the wire. Going off what you said earlier, dear brother. Ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Is this an elevating or a humbling idea? I'm looking at you, Father David.
Well, it's humbling. It's also so ashes to ashes, dust to dust is a phrase used in the Catholic funeral rites in the final stage of the prayers for the dead when you're commending the body to the ground. It's a reminder of the original material from which the first human person was made, that we are, and it's in our name, right? We are humans. And that comes from humus, meaning the earth. We are humbled. We're returned to the humus. We're returned to the earth. We are reminded of our impoverished origins and that everything that we have received as a gift from God. So it is humbling, but it also is said in a way in order to give hope and consolation to those who are grieving the loss of a loved one, that just as God gave the gift of life to this person, it is being returned to the earth, which is itself a tremendous gift from God and a reminder of God's continuing goodness to those who still draw breath in this life, and therefore gives us hope for opening our eyes on the day when all of creation is renewed in the glory of Christ and that the dead rise again. So it's both elevating and humbling at the same time in the paradoxical way these things are in Christianity. The cross is revealed as the glorification of God, that the love triumphs through suffering and death. Christianity is at its heart very paradoxical, and that's what makes it enduringly fascinating.
It's another one out of the park. There it goes. So it's not just about trying to steal the Chacha Point idol with the dust pouring out. No, it's interesting though that three of us, I guess the smartest three, my sister, and me, and Father David here, all thought about how that went back to Raiders. I think that's what Christy was thinking of. The pouring at the beginning of this minute, the dust and the ashes and the gunpowder and the the angel arc bits.
Indy is a resourceful hero. He uses whatever comes to hand, and he just has to make it up as he goes along. So if it's sand or dust or gunpowder or whatever, he's just going to muddle through.
That's it.
And speaking of resourceful, Father David, you were always a font of wisdom. And would you recommend if people want to follow you online? I know you've got a Twitter account you use sometimes.
Sometimes, not as often as other priests do. It's always amazing to me how people have time for social media, mostly because I get on there and I think, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Nobody cares. And I end up just deleting half of the tweets I start. But I am on Twitter. I'm at Father Mowry. That's FRMOWRY. So if you have strong opinions about music and the liturgy, or want to talk about the chemical composition of gunpowder, be happy to talk to anybody about that on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely check out Father David, and you can check us out on Twitter. Tom, do you know our Twitter address?
Indiana Jones Min, I think. Let me look it up.
Something like that, yeah. If you can't find us there, you can find us on Facebook. We've got a group where lots of people show up, and Father David's there, and many of our guests, the Indiana Jones Minute and the Listeners Crusade, the Facebook group. And check out our Patreon. We have a weekend show where we talk about some other Spielberg movies, where we also talk about some of the wonder and magic that he puts in these movies. And Tom and I fight quite a bit more there, too, if you want to hear more of that. So please check out all those places, and please come back here Wednesday for minute 11 of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Jones?
Dr. Jones.
Don't toy with me, Tommy.
I refuse to not toy with you.